This is the One Step Better podcast. Helping small businesses make wins each and every week. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the One Step Better podcast. I am Mike, and with me, as always, is Mr. Matt Patrick. Matt, welcome.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Doing well. Doing real well. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come join us on another podcast.
So busy. Recording this on tax deadline day. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Right. Well, Matt, we're going to talk today to some business owners who are either just getting started and maybe they're new at this, or they're maybe a little bit more seasoned and are still struggling and are feeling some of the blues of having their own business. And hopefully we can offer some insight and encouragement to those business owners out there that are maybe struggling, or maybe, who knows, they're maybe doing really well, and they could teach us something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I want you to think back about your early days whenever you decided, hey, I'm going to start my own thing. What are some of the things that you remember about those first moments?
Well, I would say when I say now officially started, I didn't realize I was officially starting. So I accidentally started. I was still looking for another job when I went, hey, I may be able to make a go of this. I think I'll just do that. And so that was my first start into it. I went out and I had a friend of Mandy's, of ours both, but Mandy's, one of Mandy's coworkers asked to do a tax return. I was like, sure, I can help you do a tax return. And then I went, and I always tell a story of, I went to the Pac Mail franchise to renew my CPA license. And they're like, hey, you're an accountant. I just moved here. I need an accountant. I'm like, are you interested in doing my stuff? I'm like, I might be. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
And so, yeah, that was kind of my getting started. That was December of 2003. I was still looking for a job. I had severance from my previous employer. I wasn't sure what the heck I was going to do, and I kind of got luck. I kind of ran into it. But once I really knew what I was going to, this is a real business.
How long from whenever you got your first paid work as a non-employee, and how long after that did you continue looking for a real job?
Probably 30 days.
Really? That's it?
Yeah. It was probably mid-December when I first did that first tax return, maybe early December. I bumped into that Pac Mail guy and end of December, and then that guy got me to the Allstate guy next door, which that guy got me in B&I. Next thing I know, 30 days later, I probably have 20 clients.
So within that 30 days, you went from, I got to find a new job, to,
hey,
I'm not going to go get a new job.
I decided I found my job. And so I still was interviewing at the time. I had a couple interviews still going on. And I didn't get the job I was kind of looking for, and I went, I think I could do this. And then at the same time, would end up being my first kind of big client was a client that was going through a partner who'd been stealing from them, and that was a very interesting way to get started. But also, I knew that was kind of some anchor work that I could do for a while, and it was going to be significant enough that it would pay my mortgage for a little bit, as it needed to get done. And that was January of 2004, end of January of 2004. So 30 days, 45 days in, I found my anchor client, which ended up being about 60% of my first year revenue, which was great. First year I ended up doing 100 tax returns, and it was a lot of fun. Working around the clock. I was working out of my house until, I think it was I want to say May 1st or so that year, right after tax season, April 15th, I went ahead and found an office. But like I said, 30 to 45 days, and once I decided I'm really going to have a business, I started thinking, okay, what don't I have that I need to have? And so early on for me, it was getting our equipment lined up. So that was a computer and a printer. I still have that printer today. It's sitting in it's asset number 1, I guess it was.
It's still on the books.
It's I may have disposed of it by now, but I'm on the books, but it's still here. But yeah, it was just kind of what does opening a business mean? So I never opened a business in Shelby County, so getting my business license and stuff figured out, tangible personal property registration, figuring out if I was going to be an LLC or not, setting all my bank accounts up. And at this point I'm thinking, okay, I've never done this before. And even the simple things that people ask us today, which is, hey, how do I get money out of the business once I got it in the business? I was still learning how distributions and draws work, and because I just had not ever done that before. Working in big accounting, I got a paycheck, and that was easy for me to understand. We didn't do a lot of flow through accounting where I was at, the big firm I was with. So it was kind of learning on the job. And I honestly was saying yes to whatever sounded like accounting. So learning real quick. I never used QuickBooks before when I opened up my practice, and my first 3 clients all used QuickBooks. I know I need to get tax software, so I found a very inexpensive software to get me through that first tax season. I was trying to replicate at least the stuff I knew I needed to have away.
You knew what you needed from the
Getting the work
standpoint
done.
of how to get the work done. You
Correct.
knew the accounting side of it, but the actual having a business, running a business,
I had never done it. And
that part was new.
Yeah, I'd never hired an employee before. I didn't know how much to pay employees. My first employee I hired was my mother-in-law, and she was just deciding to go out on her own to run a travel agency. She's like, I don't have enough customers to be a full-time thing for travel, but I want to do that and get that started. I said, well, I'd love to have some part-time help for some administrative help, and that was probably around that May of 2004. And so I'd been that whole first tax season went, I can't do this crap anymore. I'm packaging tax returns and, documents and going to chase stuff down and trying to go sell during the day. And I was doing work at night, and it was a lot of work.
It was busy.
Oh, it was super busy. Yeah. I was going to BNI every week, and then I was going to meet new clients. Like I said, I'm doing 100 tax returns between January and April 15th that year of people that didn't know I did tax returns in December of 2003.
It's a good time to start an accounting practice.
Yeah, and it was, if you did tax return, if you need a tax return done, I probably would have done it for super, super, super cheap. It was just me. I tried to bill $100 an hour because that's a good amount. That's a round number. And if I did 2,000 billable hours this year, I'd make $200,000 gross. I'm like, I didn't come close to that, but I ended up billing about 1,200 hours that first year, which is great.
Yeah. So you started that, and I would imagine at some point the light bulbs start to go off of, there's a lot of things that I need to figure out. I don't exactly know too terribly much about what I'm doing running a business.
I didn't realize I didn't know yet. I'm still trying to figure out what I do know and what I don't know for first couple of years probably.
If you could think, because this was a while back, but if you think back to that time frame, what were some of the first things that you quickly realized that you needed something to happen that you didn't even, it was just kind of blindsided or brand new for you?
Well, not necessarily blind new, but I knew real quick that I couldn't do all the work myself. I knew that from day one, that me being the only person in the office that did production work, I was not going to do all the work I had to get done. Just the physical time in the day just wouldn't allow it with the time crunches. So I used the Moonlighters right away. So people I'd worked with previously that had left the big firm prior to me or whatever. So I had a couple people that helped me that first or second year doing tax returns. I knew right away that I was basically creating helpers. So I had administrative helpers. I had, I'll say, very light bookkeeping help, people that had administrative skills that I could teach how to enter these checks in the system, and I'll go see if they're right. But I don't have time to do the data entry here.
Yeah.
And so I definitely used that. And they were great people. I was very lucky. We had friends and family that I hired, which is a very typical way of people get started. They hire people they know, regardless of their right skills. I had a limited budget, and so I knew right away that I needed some help. And so that was kind of that first, from April of 2004 through realistically June or July of 17. That's probably the way I was still crunching on, going full speed, growing like weeds, but not really making any more money. And so that was very stressful.
Where did you go to learn the things that you did? Because at some point, I would
Everywhere,
imagine you start to realize that these are some clear things I don't necessarily know, but it's always a little that extra next step to say, I know I don't know this, and then actually got to go figure it out.
Yeah, obviously being around other business owners, just listening to their questions and understanding what they're trying to do. And then I bought Creative Solutions Accounting, which is UltraTax, which is the same tax software we use today. That was 2005 was the first. 2004's tax returns were the first one I used on UltraTax. And they had a web forum, and I've said this before as well. They had a web forum called Arnie. It had tax questions if you had tax questions, or running a small business, it was practice advice is what I think it was on running a small business accounting practice. And that would be my downtime reading. That was when I had to get away for a second, and I was just trying to do that. I went to PPC, had a couple things on managing an accounting firm. I tried to find anything I could read, anything I could find online on how to run a business. I was trying to do all that I could do just to absorb as much as I could, and winging a lot of it, going, yep, that probably wasn't right, or that was wrong. We brought in clients we shouldn't have brought into. I said yes to projects that I got my butt kicked and didn't even come close to making money on. But at the end of the day, I still think our work product was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I wasn't necessarily making money doing that work, which is what typical, a lot of times, new businesses run into.
So in your world, I mean, realistically, it sounds like you started with the idea that you were going to go be kind of a solopreneur where you're going to go maybe have some admin help
Yep.
but it wasn't starting with the idea I'm going to build an empire necessarily.
Oh, absolutely not. And it's, I was thinking about that. We have a lot of clients that come in from a franchise and go, I've decided to buy this franchise and I'm going to run it that way. Or I've seen people buy a business that's already established.
Yeah.
I love both those answers, except for the joy of getting to build it exactly the way you want to. The hedge of a franchise is there's a proven track record. You can compare yourself against others, and it's a proven formula, or it should be proven formula, versus starting with client zero is a whole nother. I mean, I've made a million mistakes to get to where I am now, and I'll make a million more before I finally say I'm closer to figuring it out. If I bought a business that was established, I have a track record. And so if I bought a business, let's say I bought a plumbing business, I would know who their customer base already was. I already have the equipment in place. I probably already have employees. I started with none of that. So it's a lot different experience. We run into a lot of restaurant clients today that they go one of two routes. They bought a franchise or they decide to open a restaurant for the first time.
Yeah.
And that experience of opening a restaurant for the first time is awesome. As long as you have experience on how to do the hard part, which is actually running the restaurant. Then it's learning how to run a business, those are two different things. We have a lot of people that run businesses that don't know how to run a restaurant, and that's also a very big challenge. They know that they know how to make money doing other things, but they don't know the grind of a 24/7 restaurant owner.
Well, in your world, you knew and you were confident in all the production pieces of what you were going to have to do, and then you had to learn and figure out the running a business part of it.
Correct.
And I think that's probably common for most people that want to get into something is they have some type of, I'll say, production mindset where, and we see this a lot where, I was an executive chef or I was a head chef or a lead chef at a restaurant and now I'm going to go do my own thing.
Yep.
And that's where they know the production piece of it. They know how to make things operate, but that's very different than running the actual business.
And yeah, absolutely. That's what eMyth's all about, right? You go from the doer to the manager of the doer to the owner. And that's what the eMyth's talking about there. And I went through all those cycles, and I still am in the progress of that. I hop into different roles all the time. Either you're the doer, or you're the manager, or you are the entrepreneur or the owner. And knowing which hat you're wearing is super important. A lot of our clients come with they have the manager hat or the doer hat. They may have been a pool service person who decided to open a pool service business. It's just different things you have to wear. And they'll constantly grab that hat back of doing the pool service work at some point. If somebody were to quit or not show up a day, it's part of it.
Yeah.
My big thing with a small business owner or any business owners who are starting a business is you have to have the grind that you are 100% all in at all times. I don't think you
got to be committed to it.
Can't half-ass it.
Yeah, you got to be committed to it. At the same time, if you do focus on just one area of the business, in your example or in your life, if you only focused on, I'm going to prepare tax returns and that's all I'm going to do, then you would have missed out on a lot of opportunity to actually grow a business because you would have.
I had a great job.
I would own my job.
Correct.
And I'm going to do that until forever. And at that point, I feel like that is, a lot of ways, it ties you to that job more than putting on the owner hat, and where you can kind of bounce around a little bit and take some time off. And at some point, you're going to hire people to replace different hats. But if you just stick to, I'm going to be a tax preparer, or I'm going to be a plumber, or I'm going to be an electrician, or whatever it is, then you lose flexibility with that.
Absolutely. I think back to when I was at the big firm. I never realized the idea that an accounting firm could be a business. That sounds like a weird thing to say, but I always thought of it as an accounting firm as there's a really smart partner who has a bunch of clients that he or she still serves. He has a team under him that basically helping him, making sure that his clients are super served. Mm-hmm. And that's a typical accounting firm model. It wasn't until I got involved with PASBA, I thought, oh my goodness, these people are running these accounting firms and they're not doing production work. Like their goal is literally 0 billable hours themselves. And I'm like, that sounds really intriguing to me to actually own a business, which is way different than being an accountant at an accounting firm. I have a client that we've had for years now. He owns a pool service business, and every once in a while he gets frustrated, the people don't show up, or he has a hard time hiring, or they lose money on a job. And he goes, I think I made more money when I just put the pole in the back of my truck and went all over town. I said, let's be honest. A, you're not working nearly as hard as you did then physically, and you're making a lot more money than you made when you were in physical, putting your pole in the back of your truck. And you can do this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
If you set systems up. Now, granted, it's going to have some crappy days, and that's part of it. That's a part of every business. But having a system that runs without you. So what's the things that's still frustrating you today that you need to continue to work towards removing so that eventually those ideal days happen more and those crappy days happen less?
And you were about, if I remember right, about 3 years in or so whenever you started to make that shift between...
I started realizing it was even possible. It was taking a long time to shift, but like I didn't even think it was. I thought I had to be the accountant.
And at that point, you had the vision of, you know what, I can run this factory like any other business and not have to be in the daily grind of doing all of the work and being all of the things.
I had to be all the things, right? And then it took time to, I mean, even then it was like, oh, this is possible. I still have, 80 clients I'm servicing myself, and my team is still learning, and I have a green team, and I don't have everybody I need on the roles, and I'm still doing sales, or I'm doing janitorial work, or I'm doing videography or whatever. I mean, whatever it was still on me. And you go back and you go, man, I really wish I would have thought of it that way from the very, very beginning. Obviously, I didn't have the budget to do that in the first, but like as I thought about actually running a business, it just makes so much more sense. And any service-based business should be thinking that same way, I think, as an owner. Like if I'm an insurance agency, I don't want to be the only agent being productive.
Right. But there's so many businesses that do get caught up in the I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm not necessarily worried about the running a business side of what things look like.
And that's a perfectly fine model. There's a lot of accounting firms that are super awesome that have superstar models. There's plenty of doctors' offices. That's what they are, right? There's a doctor's office with one doctor and a bunch of nurses. I've kind of always said it like this, is I kind of want to be where I am a doctor hiring a bunch of other doctors to do the work, and I'm not involved in the patient care. And I'm not hiring nurses to help me. I want them to basically own their own client relationships.
Yeah. And I would say today, 20 years in almost, you aren't necessarily an accountant at an accounting firm.
No,
you are
very rarely. Yeah, luckily,
right? Because that would have gotten old a long time ago.
And I'm not. Who knows how good I am at really.
But you're not getting into daily accounting work at an accounting firm anymore.
No.
And I think that's the difference. And it really depends upon what your goals are. Some people, if you really loved accounting and you never wanted to get out of just true accounting work or tax work, whatever it is, then you would have been perfectly content just doing tax returns for all this time. But that wasn't your goal.
And there's a lot of firms and organizations I'm in that there's people that love financial planning, or there's people that love tax, or they love, really getting into the nitty gritty of trying to create a projection or a future plan for somebody. That's not the part I enjoy. I love the part of building a team and just serving the heck out of clients, which is way different. I love the business management part a lot more. I like the actual production work. I still enjoy some of the production work, but I wouldn't want to be the one that has to do it every month in, month out. That's not a good role for me, probably.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Kim would agree with that as well.
Yeah, I know. I'm good at 1 month at it, though. I'm awesome 1 month.
You know what? I'm the superstar that can jump in and fix something. But don't ask me to do it again.
Don't do it
tomorrow.
Twice. I got to do it twice. I've already told you how to do it now. So figure it out.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. I think it's interesting because in the evolution from an entrepreneur standpoint that starts in a situation like yours where it is more production mindset, it doesn't necessarily have to be a services-based business. If I'm I earlier used example, if I'm a chef and I really enjoy cooking food, then that may be the best long-term role for me. But there's a difference between I'm a chef that likes cooking food, but I really like being in the restaurant business as a whole. Because I think there's a shift that happens in the maturity of the business where you start to say, hey, you know what? I need to change my job from, in your case, preparing tax returns to leading tax preparers.
Yeah.
And we've seen this internally where people have shifted roles. There is a shift that also has to happen in your mindset of what you enjoy doing. Because if you don't enjoy leading people, if you don't enjoy developing other people, you're not going to enjoy building a business.
And it's super hard as you go in those migrations, right? So you're not going to bat 1,000, so you don't get all the best people on the team. You're not good at managing people because you've never really done it before, which is my problem. I had managed small teams before, but to manage all different kind of personalities and conflicts, and then you deal with, oh man, they're not doing the work the quality I really would expect it to be. They're not handling it the way I would handle it. I would totally do it better than them. I'm like, no, they're doing it just fine. They're doing it a different way. And that takes a lot of it's hard. It was hard on me. I was like, man, that's not how I would do it. I still struggle with that today. But that jumping into and out of my role as a manager and leading somebody to improve the way they do it next time, as opposed to just let me jump in and fix it and take it over and I'll get, that's not what I want to do. I think back early on of all the stuff I didn't know, like the stuff that, realizing, all right, well, we have a business tax. We filed a business tax return the first 2 years we were in business. Little did I know, and no one told me that we were exempt as a professional services organization. I didn't know that. It wasn't until I researched it for a new client who was a law firm. He's like, we don't ever had to pay this before. He's like, yeah, we're exempt. I'm like, you're exempt.
That
What
might
if
be
I'm exempt?
interesting.
Hey, why didn't you tell me? Shelby County, well, you filed the return. We'll take the money.
Yeah.
So that was just me learning. I had never done that before. A lot of new businesses will get into the process of, getting a new place built out, and they have their, let's say, their liquor tax and their sales tax and their sales tax exemption, and all that stuff is stuff that you've never done before as an owner, and you're getting into something that you're not real familiar with, and it's why you need experts around you. I think it's getting a good insurance agent, getting a good banker, getting a good accountant, getting a good attorney. Those people around you, and also being around other business owners that are probably at a different stage in their business cycle than you are, is an important part of that getting started process. Anybody you can get around you as that community of people to help you would be super important.
It's also important to not be afraid to ask questions, because
That's not my problem.
yeah, that's typically not. Yeah. But I mean, if you don't know something, the only way you're going to figure that out is go figure it out.
Yep.
And if you're afraid, I don't want to ask that guy that because, he's
Oh,
going
I've
to look
had-
dumb at me or think I'm dumb and don't know what I'm doing. Or you got to get all that stuff out of the way.
Yeah, it's amazing how many times like we deliver a tax return that first time, like, I need my W-2. I'm like, no, you're not an employee. And so just explaining how money comes in or out of their business is why one of the articles that we write on our blog, or we do some training on internally with other clients, is just to understand, here's how money comes out of your business, or here's how money gets into your business. Or, if you do a draw, you're really taking it from one pocket to the other pocket. Or if you're putting money in from your personal, it's from this pocket back to this pocket. And you're like, well, where's my deduction for that? I'm like, well, you don't get deducting.
Yeah.
Paying yourself doesn't work that way. So just learning all those kind of rules in the beginning as you get started. Don't be afraid to ask the questions that you think are stupid, because more than likely they're pretty good questions.
And there's probably questions that the people that are asking to have had
has.
at some point.
But yes,
Because-
we've had all of them.
So if
How did my car work? If I borrow money, what if I want to, can I use my house for this thing or that thing? Can I rent this piece of equipment back to myself or whatever? There's all these things that come up. Those are very normal questions that we'll explain the rules and kind of go from there.
So you started from zero and started building something up. What do you think about, let's say that I want to go start a new business. It's going to be a brick and mortar. So instead of starting from zero, I'm going to go raise a bunch of funding, get some money in the door.
Other people's
money.
Other people being investors or debt.
Yeah, investors.
Yeah.
And start with that.
It depends on scale and your capital, the ability to grow it, right? So accounting is a pretty low cost business to get into. In the grand scheme of things, a computer and printer and some software, I was pretty much up and running. I didn't have to have a brick and mortar, but I could. If I'm scaling something with a point where I'm trying to bring in, I want to open let's say I want to open a couple of restaurants, and we've had a couple of clients do this. Having some investors that are going in with the idea of getting a return is a lot different answer than, if you can go into the bank directly, getting a loan and doing it. I'm a big believer of keep as much equity as you possibly can until you desperately either need to sell it to other people or you can't scale it the way you want to. All those people are going to bring their own opinions and their own what they want to happen, and they're going to be the people that I think they're going to be pushing you to do things you may not want to do, or
it changes the dynamic of
it does. You're not in as much control as you
business,
think you are. However, there's plenty of times when capital is needed and their expertise comes to the room as well, and that expertise can be a guide. So you may have somebody that you're partnering with that they've already opened 5 or 6 other restaurants in the past, or they're opened up other businesses and they have some historical knowledge there to help you. I think forming the right partnerships with the right investor groups is perfectly fine.
Can be helpful, yeah.
Yeah, sure. But I always would err on the side of caution.
You have to understand what comes with that.
Yeah, I lose control. When you add people involved if more money's in the pot and it's not all yours, you're not the only one in control, no matter how much you want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also changes the dynamic of how you run the business. And sometimes that could be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can come with a sense of responsibility.
For
There's
sure.
other people's money involved. But there's also the temptation of, well, it's not all my money anyway, so I can go just be
It's
reckless.
both. So, and I probably err on the other side where it is all my money. I'm not afraid to be a little more reckless. It's my gamble. I'm gambling my own money. So if I buy software that doesn't work, I'm okay to throw it away. If I had a partner involved in there, I'd be like, well, I'm kind of spending their money too. I don't want to do that. So
There's good checks and balances, but
Yeah.
it also can be
I'm an eternal
dangerous.
optimist, which is a great thing, except for when it's not.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I always think everything's going to work out. Every employee I ever hires is going to be the best one ever. Every software is going to be the magic pill. It also lets me go, that didn't work, and I'm not afraid to throw it away. But I also think some of that is I'm spending my own money.
Your risk meter is broken.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Yeah.
It's only broken to the extent that I can't fix it. If I throw that away and start something new, it's good.
Right. As long as that new thing starts to
It's going to be magic.
pay off.
The
right?
new thing is magic, though. It's going to be fine. I'm fine.
I'm only as good as my next idea.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm a visionary, Mike. I'm allowed to be that, right?
Yeah.
But that is an optimist. It's a plus and a minus. And so, being a business owner, having a team around you that's not all the same. You don't want to have 5 optimists in the
Right.
room. You'll be broke.
Yeah.
And so,
Or in jail.
or in jail, or both. Yeah. The lessons learned because you have no choice but to be conservative, or because you're broke, or because you made a mistake, or we've made plenty of mistakes historically that went, oh, that could have turned out even worse than it did. Or that was a lesson learned. I'm never doing that again. My head hurts and I'm never running into that wall ever again. And yet I still would do it again. And I go, well, I didn't learn it as good as I should the first time.
I thought I learned that lesson.
I learned it, but not as good as I should. But that's very much the case. And so I am not cross every T, dot every I. Well, that's all well and good till, do I have insurance for that? I think I do. God, I hope I do. I thought I did. And so those things are super important as you learn some of those lessons painfully in the beginning. And also as you grow and you learn from those mistakes, but also as you get more resources involved, it allows you to get expertise from other people around you that help hedge your mistakes.
Well, you had mentioned earlier, and we've talked about this before, is kind of having your board of advisors around you that's going to be able to bounce ideas off of, and also make sure that your walls are up and covered. And that's the banker, that's your insurance person, that's your accountant, that's your lawyer.
It was, but it was also just I was around a lot of other business owners. I wanted to be around other business owners. That's my potential client base, but it was also the attorney's great, but at the same time, he doesn't know how to run every business type.
Yeah, but that person does know how to make
sure I don't go to jail.
Right.
It's perfect. Yeah.
And so I'm not necessarily suggesting that those people are going to be the people that you're talking to about how to run a better business, but they are the people that you need to talk to make sure that within the walls of your business that you're not doing things too crazy.
Absolutely. It was I was very fortunate. I had a couple of bigger firms that I was friends with. I had people that I'd worked with previously that were other firms. I had other professionals that I got to go around in different environments, be it either clients I could bounce ideas off of, or friends who owned different businesses that were a lot more successful than I've ever thought about being, that I could go, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, well, this is what we do. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. We should do that too.
Yeah.
Not, like you said earlier, not being afraid to ask stupid questions. That's probably the biggest lesson I would take away from it. Don't be afraid to ask. Ask your accountant, ask your attorney, what should I be doing? Find somebody, read, go find help.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to go find help.
There's a million resources out there.
Yep.
But it's not easy though. I mean, it's not easy to wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I have got to get up, get out of bed, get to work my tail off for however many hours I need to do that in order to be successful.
Yep.
And not everybody has that, that bend towards owning their own business. And it's perfectly fine to say, you know what, I'm gonna go and be an employee at Walmart for 30 years or, whatever career it is that you want to have. It's not, I don't think there is if I'm just an employee, I'm here, but if I'm a business owner, then I'm, elevated beyond that.
Oh, 1,000% agree.
It's important to be self-aware enough to say, you know what, maybe that's not for me.
Yeah. I mean, the joys I love, there's tons of good and bad about being a business owner. The joy of being a business owner is that I've got to build something pretty cool and fun, and I really enjoy it. The bad is it never turns off. I am okay with that. I've been doing it long enough to now be okay with it. But my wife had to put up with it, and my kids have had to put up with it, and my parents had to put up with it, and it You ask my kids, there's 5 seasons. There's not 4. We have a tax season. It's every year. For a long time, they never saw me every spring. Like, it never happened. It was common that they're like, yeah, we'll see you in a couple months. I mean, like, I'd make it to baseball games or whatever, but that's about it. Like, it was that and then back to work till midnight. And those grinds get old, and every business runs through it. Like, it doesn't change. Like, even as you mature, your role as business owners, it never turns off, and you can't think it's going to turn off. I was up here late last night. We had a situation going on in the office we had a meeting today that I need to be a part of. I mean, it was I'm going to be ready for it. It wasn't a if, and, or but. It was, it
has to happen.
It has to happen. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Matt, so as we wrap up, I got one more question for you, and then we'll get out of here. If you could go back, because you're 20 years almost into this thing, if you could go back to, first week, first month of going to go out on your own, what is, 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you wish that you could give yourself that would have made that process a lot easier?
For me, it would have been as a service-based business, I'd have super clarified what we sell. Saying yes to everybody was great, except for, right? It was a hard system to repeat. I didn't know how to leverage it. I didn't know how to staff for it. So in my world, the first thing would be is defining my box, what I'm going to sell and what I'm not going to sell. The other thing would have been to think through the hats or the roles I need to get filled right away, and probably would have overextended myself early on with a couple of hires to help me. I would have hurt myself in the beginning, but I would have helped myself in the long run. It took me 3 or 4 years to get the right people around me, which it made a lot of gray hairs and a lot of pain, a lot of time. That was just a lot of time sunk, and I could have probably made more money with better systems, being known as sell, and then having more of a better team around me.
Yeah, that's good advice. Matt, I appreciate you coming in and taking some time to talk through your early journey. And if you're out there listening and you are thinking about starting your own business, or if you're 15, 20 years in, like Matt is here, I want to hear kind of what your experience is. What are some of the things that you struggle with? And more importantly, what questions do you have that you are afraid to ask anybody because of maybe their judgment? You can send those to us at onestepbetteratworks.com. I promise you we will answer every single one of them, and we will do so without any judgment whatsoever. And so I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks, and have a great day. Thanks for listening to the One Step Better podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you would take some time to rate us 5 stars on your podcast player of choice, and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you never miss out on another episode. Thanks, and have a great day.